mentally, because this world doesn't reward the cleanest heart. It rewards the sharpest mind. Machiavelli never taught people how to be evil. That's the excuse weak thinkers use when they feel uncomfortable with truth. What he actually taught was far more dangerous than evil. He taught awareness. He taught survival. He taught how to stand upright in a room where everyone else is already lying. Look around your life for a moment. At work, in social circles, you'll notice something strange. The people who manipulate rarely look aggressive. They look calm. They look reasonable. They smile while rearranging the board against you. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Power doesn't come from shouting. It comes from positioning, from patience, from knowing how people think when they believe no one is watching them closely. If someone plays dirty with you, it's not because they're stronger than you. It's because they understand something you were never taught. They understand human behavior without the comfort of morality. They know how expectations work. They know how reactions expose weakness. They know how silence creates pressure. And most importantly, they know that good people hesitate. Good people wait. They hope things improve. They expect fairness. They believe intentions matter more than outcomes. Dirty players don't think like that. They don't attack strength. They attack expectations. They wait for you to assume decency. The moment you do, they move. This video is not about becoming cruel. It's not about lying, cheating, or hurting people. It's about understanding the environment you're already in. Because refusing to see the game doesn't remove you from it. It only makes you an easy piece. Machiavelli never promised peace. He promised position. He promised clarity in a world where clarity is rare. He promised that once you understand how power works, you stop being surprised by people's behavior. In the next minutes, you'll learn 10 psychological principles Machiavelli observed long before social media, corporate politics, and modern manipulation. These are not motivational quotes. These are mental tools. Tools that help you stop reacting, stop explaining, and stop bleeding energy to people who don't deserve access to your emotions. If you stay until the end, you won't feel louder. You'll feel calmer, sharper, harder to move. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I see the game. Number 1. Why dirty players love good people. Machiavelli noticed something most people never want to accept because it attacks their self-image before it attacks their logic. The people who get targeted the most are not weak, stupid, or incapable. They are good. They are consistent. They are transparent. They behave the same way in every situation, with every person, expecting the same moral standard in return. And that consistency becomes a map for anyone who wants to use them. Dirty players don't hunt power directly. They hunt patterns. They observe who pauses before responding, who gives the benefit of the doubt, who hesitates to disappoint others. They watch who feels uncomfortable with silence, who rushes to clarify intentions, who feels guilty for asserting boundaries. These are not flaws in character. They are signals. And signals invite exploitation. A good person assumes shared values. They assume rules are mutual. They assume fairness is universal. That assumption is the opening. The moment you believe the other side will act the way you would act, you hand them control over timing, tone, and outcome. Dirty players don't need to overpower you. They simply wait for you to self-limit. Machiavelli understood that morality without awareness becomes predictability. And predictability is not virtue in hostile environments. It is exposure. When someone knows exactly how long you'll tolerate disrespect, how much confusion you'll excuse, how many chances you'll give before pushing back, they no longer have to guess. They calculate. This is why dirty players feel comfortable escalating slowly. They test with small violations, a delay, a misrepresentation, a subtle shift of responsibility. They watch your response. If you stay polite, they advance. If you stay hopeful, they continue. If you explain instead of observing, they adjust their approach. Each reaction teaches them how far they can go without consequence. Good people often believe restraint earns respect. Machiavelli saw the opposite. Restraint without leverage invites pressure. When someone realizes you will always choose harmony over position, they no longer need to negotiate. They only need to wait. The danger is not kindness. The danger is being readable. Dirty players don't fear ethics. They fear uncertainty. They fear people who don't reveal thresholds early. They fear those who don't rush to restore balance. They fear individuals who observe quietly instead of correcting immediately. This is why Machiavelli warned against wearing virtue on the surface. Not because virtue is useless, but because advertising it removes flexibility. When people know exactly who you are at all times, they know exactly how to push you off center. The solution is not cruelty, it is strategic ambiguity. You don't need to change who you are internally. You need to change what you reveal externally. You don't owe consistency to those who haven't earned trust. You don't owe clarity to those collecting information. You don't owe predictability to people who benefit from your hesitation. Once you stop assuming decency, you regain leverage. Once you stop filling silence, you regain control. Once you stop volunteering your limits, you stop being easy. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I move with awareness. Number 2, the art of controlled weakness. Machiavelli understood that raw force attracts resistance the way heat attracts pressure. When strength is obvious, others adjust. They defend, they prepare, they close ranks. But when power is hidden, people relax. They expose themselves without realizing they are doing it. This is where controlled weakness becomes strategic, not submissive. Dirty players are always scanning for threats. They don't fear aggression as much as they fear unpredictability. Loud dominance is easy to respond to. Silent capability is not. When you present yourself as fully capable, fully confident, and fully aware, others become cautious. They speak less, they give you less, they protect their angles. But when you allow small gaps to be seen, the atmosphere shifts. Controlled weakness is not pretending to be incompetent. It is allowing others to underestimate your awareness, your reach, or your intent. It is choosing when not to correct, when not to challenge, when not to reveal understanding. This restraint creates a false sense of safety. People begin to assume they are ahead. They rush decisions, they over-explain, they show priorities they would normally guard. Machiavelli observed that impatience is a product of perceived advantage. When someone believes you lack options, they stop managing themselves carefully. They talk more freely. They test boundaries faster. They escalate without securing position. This is not arrogance. It is human nature responding to perceived dominance. The mistake most people make is trying to prove competence too early. They clarify. They justify. They demonstrate intelligence. In doing so, they shut down the flow of information coming toward them. The moment others realize you are tracking everything, they stop revealing. Controlled weakness keeps the channel open. There's power in letting assumptions remain uncorrected. If someone believes you didn't notice a shift, a contradiction, or a tactic, they feel safe repeating it. Patterns emerge. Intent becomes visible. Timing becomes readable. What they think is invisibility is actually exposure. Machiavelli never advised constant strength. He advised selective display. You choose when to assert, when to withdraw, when to appear uncertain. This variation disrupts calculation. Others can't lock onto a stable model of you. Without a model, they hesitate. Controlled weakness also disarms expectation. People anticipate resistance from strength. They don't anticipate patience from capability. When you don't react the way they expect, their script breaks. They start filling gaps. They begin explaining themselves. They offer concessions prematurely. This approach requires discipline. Ego wants recognition. Pride wants clarity. But revealing too much too soon collapses the advantage. The goal is not to win early. The goal is to collect leverage quietly. When used correctly, controlled weakness turns the observer into the driver. You're no longer responding to pressure. You are shaping it. Others reveal limits while you conserve yours. Others rush while you stabilize. Machiavelli understood that the most dangerous person in the room is not the loudest. It is the one whose full capacity remains unknown until it matters. The moment you stop correcting every assumption, you start controlling the frame. Number 3. Why explaining yourself makes you lose. Machiavelli warned against unnecessary honesty, not because truth is harmful, but because explanation shifts control away from you. The instant you begin justifying actions, motives, or decisions, you surrender authority over interpretation. What started as clarity becomes an opening. What felt like transparency turns into leverage for the other side. Explanations invite evaluation. Once you explain, others feel entitled to judge whether your reasoning is valid, sufficient, or acceptable. This changes the dynamic. You are no longer acting from position, you are seeking approval. Dirty players recognize this immediately. They don't argue your outcome. They dissect your reasoning, because reasoning can be twisted. Every explanation creates structure. Structure creates angles. Angles create opportunities. The more detail you provide, the more material exists to challenge, distort, or weaponize. Dirty players are not listening to understand. They are listening to extract. They wait for inconsistencies, emotional language, or gaps they can reframe. Silence operates differently. Silence offers no surface to attack. It cannot be edited, quoted, or selectively remembered. What remains unsaid cannot be reframed against you. Machiavelli understood that withholding commentary preserves ambiguity, and ambiguity protects power. When others cannot fully interpret your intent, they hesitate to move aggressively. Explaining also reveals priorities. When you justify, you expose what matters to you, what you fear being misunderstood about, and where pressure affects you most. Dirty players study these signals. They adjust future tactics around them. What you thought was honesty becomes a roadmap. There is also a psychological shift that occurs once you begin explaining. You feel invested in being understood. This investment makes you reactive. You start correcting interpretations, clarifying tone, defending intent. Each response pulls you deeper into their frame. The conversation stops being about facts and becomes about narrative control. Machiavelli observed that authority rarely explains itself. It announces decisions, not rationales. This is not arrogance, it is positioning. When you act decisively without over-commentary, others adjust around you. When you over-communicate, others test boundaries. Dirty players often provoke explanations deliberately. They question, imply confusion, or express mild disagreement. Not to gain clarity, but to prompt you into revealing more than necessary. Once you start, stopping feels awkward. The trap closes quietly. Silence forces others to project. In the absence of explanation, they fill gaps with assumptions. Those assumptions reveal more about them than about you. Their tone shifts, their patience thins, their discomfort grows. This reversal places pressure back where it belongs. This does not mean becoming evasive or deceptive. It means understanding that not every action requires commentary, not every decision needs defense, not every move benefits from transparency. Discernment replaces impulse. Machiavelli understood that the less you explain, the fewer handles exist for manipulation. When you speak only when necessary, each word carries weight. When you explain constantly, words lose authority. Power is preserved not by saying more, but by choosing when silence is stronger. Number 4. Dirty players never attack. They position. Machiavelli observed that direct confrontation is rarely the preferred move of those who understand influence. Open attacks create resistance, visibility, and risk. Positioning, however, reshapes outcomes without friction. Dirty players don't push you into conflict. They place you inside circumstances where any response works against you. Instead of accusing, they suggest. Instead of opposing, they frame. Instead of challenging, they arrange conditions that limit your options. You are not forced to act, you are guided into acting. And once you respond, the environment has already been designed to make you appear impatient, emotional, or unreasonable. Positioning relies on context, not force. Dirty players understand that perception is formed by surroundings, timing, and comparison. They wait until others are present. They choose moments when you are rushed, tired, or under pressure. They introduce variables quietly, then step back. When tension rises, they remain calm, allowing contrast to work in their favor. Machiavelli understood that reputation is rarely destroyed by accusation. It erodes through implication. When someone appears consistently composed while you appear reactive, observers draw conclusions without needing instruction. Dirty players don't need to discredit you openly. They let patterns do the work. This is why defending yourself loudly often backfires. Defense confirms the frame that something needs defending. The more energy you invest in correcting perception, the more attention you draw to it. Dirty players rely on this instinct. They expect you to rush in and clarify. They expect emotional urgency. That urgency becomes evidence. Positioning also works through role assignment. You are cast into a part before you speak. The complainer, the difficult one, the impatient one. Once the role is established, every action is interpreted through that lens. Dirty players don't argue facts. They manage labels. Machiavelli advised understanding the stage before reacting on it. If you don't recognize how a situation is arranged, you will mistake manipulation for coincidence. You will respond to surface behavior while ignoring the structure beneath it. That structure determines outcome long before dialogue begins. The counter is not aggression, it is composure and observation. When you slow down, you disrupt the design. When you refuse to perform the expected role, the script weakens. When you respond minimally, the contrast disappears. Positioning fails when there is no reaction to amplify. Dirty players depend on predictability. They need you to defend, explain, or emote on cue. When you don't, they lose control over narrative flow. The environment they built stops working. Observers begin to notice inconsistencies. Machiavelli understood that power operates invisibly when allowed to. The strongest response is often restraint. Let context speak without your interference. Let patterns reveal themselves. Let silence deny momentum. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose position. Number 5. Why fairness is a trap. Machiavelli understood that fairness feels safe because it offers moral comfort, not because it guarantees balance. People cling to it, believing outcomes will correct themselves over time. This belief collapses the moment one side abandons the rules while the other remains loyal to them. Fairness only functions inside shared agreement. Outside of that, it becomes a vulnerability. Dirty players recognize when someone is committed to equal treatment regardless of context. They exploit that commitment by stepping outside boundaries while expecting you to stay inside them. You hesitate. They advance. You calculate ethics. They calculate advantage. The mismatch determines the result before any exchange finishes. The trap of fairness is not kindness. It is rigidity. When you insist on equal standards in unequal environments, you remove your ability to adapt. Dirty players rely on this. They know you will hesitate to escalate. They know you will avoid appearing excessive. They know you fear being seen as unjust more than being disadvantaged. Machiavelli saw that justice without enforcement is symbolic. It communicates values but produces no consequence. Dirty players are unmoved by symbols. They respond only to cost. When behavior carries no price, it repeats. When imbalance creates comfort, it deepens. Fairness also delays decision-making. While you assess what is appropriate, others act on what is effective. This delay is not neutral. It transfers momentum. Dirty players understand tempo. They move while others deliberate. By the time fairness is considered, the situation has shifted. There is also a psychological reward tied to fairness. It allows people to feel superior while losing position. This is why many intelligent individuals remain trapped. They confuse moral satisfaction with strategic success. Machiavelli warned against this illusion. Power does not recognize intention, it recognizes outcome. Playing accurately is different. Accuracy responds to reality as it is, not as it should be. It adjusts to behavior, not ideals. When someone crosses a line, accuracy responds proportionally, not politely. It introduces consequence without apology. It does not seek balance. It restores leverage. Dirty players often accuse others of being unfair when control is threatened. This accusation is strategic. It triggers guilt. It pressures you to retreat into restraint. Machiavelli understood this tactic well. The moment you begin defending fairness, you abandon advantage. Accuracy does not mean excess. It means precision. It means choosing responses that correct imbalance without drama. It means understanding when restraint serves you and when it serves the other side. It means knowing that rules are tools, not anchors. Once you release the need to appear fair to those acting in bad faith, clarity returns. Decisions simplify. Boundaries solidify. Others adjust quickly when they realize behavior carries consequence. Dirty players respect enforcement, not ideals. Machiavelli did not dismiss justice. He contextualized it. He understood that without power, justice is decoration. With power, it becomes structure. When you stop confusing fairness with strength, you stop losing quietly. Number 6. The psychology of delayed response. Machiavelli observed that speed often disguises itself as confidence, while patience is mistaken for hesitation. In reality, immediate reactions frequently serve the other side more than they serve you. Dirty players rely on urgency. They push for quick answers, fast decisions, and instant emotional engagement because momentum reduces your ability to choose deliberately. A delayed response disrupts expectation. When others anticipate reaction and receive stillness instead, uncertainty forms. That uncertainty creates internal pressure. Minds begin racing to fill the gap. Motives are questioned. Strategies are reconsidered. The silence becomes active, even though nothing is being said. Dirty players are conditioned to manage situations through pace. They provoke, then watch for speed. Quick replies reveal priorities, emotional triggers, and tolerance thresholds. Delay removes these signals. Without feedback, they lose orientation. The advantage quietly shifts. Machiavelli understood that time amplifies imbalance. Those who rush leak information. Those who wait gather it. A pause allows you to observe shifts in tone, escalation attempts, or backtracking. What was initially confident often becomes restless. What was calculated begins to wobble. Delayed response also reverses emotional gravity. The person who waits controls attention. Others begin wondering what is being considered, what is being prepared, or what they may have misjudged. Anxiety grows in the absence of confirmation. This anxiety weakens position without confrontation. Importantly, delay is not avoidance. It is intentional withholding. Dirty players expect friction or compliance. They rarely anticipate composure without explanation. This composure interrupts their script. They cannot proceed confidently without knowing where you stand. The pause denies them that clarity. Machiavelli noted that pressure reveals character over time. When reactions slow, impatience surfaces. Repeated follow-ups appear. Tone sharpens. Attempts to regain control increase. Each attempt exposes intent. Delay turns the other side into the performer. There is also a reputational effect. Those who respond instantly appear reactive. Those who choose timing appear measured. Observers notice this contrast. Authority is associated with control over pace, not volume of response. Delayed reactions signal self-command. Many people fear that waiting looks weak. Dirty players encourage this fear because it benefits them. In reality, restraint communicates confidence. It suggests options. It implies evaluation rather than defense. Machiavelli understood that power is felt when it is unhurried. Delay also protects against manipulation through emotion. When feelings are given time to settle, clarity replaces impulse. Decisions made after pause are harder to redirect. Dirty players depend on emotional immediacy. Remove that, and their influence fades. The goal is not to stall indefinitely. It is to choose timing that maximizes leverage. Respond when information is sufficient. Move when pressure has shifted. Act when others are already exposed. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I control the pace. Number 7. Why they try to confuse your identity. Machiavelli observed that control becomes effortless once a person loses internal certainty. When someone no longer trusts their own direction, they begin looking outward for confirmation. Dirty players understand this deeply. Instead of attacking behavior, they target self-concept. Once identity becomes unstable, resistance collapses without force. This tactic rarely appears aggressive. It arrives as commentary, subtle remarks, comparisons to a past version, statements framed as concern. The goal is not correction, it is disorientation. When someone begins questioning whether they are acting in character, they slow down, they hesitate, they second-guess instinct. Identity confusion creates friction inside the mind. Energy that should be used for observation gets redirected towards self-evaluation. Dirty players exploit this shift. While you are busy wondering whether you are being reasonable, they continue moving forward. Machiavelli understood that stable identity creates consistency under pressure. When individuals know who they are and what they stand for, external influence weakens. Dirty players attempt to fracture that stability. They imply deviation. They suggest loss of authenticity. They frame change as decline. This manipulation works because most people tie self-image to external validation. When others challenge that image, discomfort arises. The desire to correct perception activates. Behavior becomes reactive. The person tries to prove alignment with the past rather than acting in the present. Confusion also disrupts boundary enforcement. When someone doubts their own stance, they hesitate to assert limits. Dirty players recognize this hesitation and apply pressure precisely there. They don't need to overpower. They simply wait for uncertainty to do the work. Machiavelli saw that rulers fell not from attack, but from loss of clarity. Once identity fractured, decisions became inconsistent. Inconsistency invited challenge. Challenge invited collapse. The same principle applies on a smaller scale. Internal division weakens external position. The defense is internal anchoring. Identity must be defined privately, not socially. When values and direction are self-established, external commentary loses power. Others may question, but doubt does not take root. Decisions remain grounded. Dirty players rely on the assumption that you need agreement to proceed. When that assumption fails, their leverage disappears. You are no longer guided by approval or disapproval. You act from alignment, not reassurance. This does not mean rigidity. Growth involves change, but change chosen intentionally is strength. Change induced through confusion is weakness. Machiavelli understood the difference. He warned against letting others define who you should be in moments of pressure. When identity is anchored internally, manipulation becomes visible. Attempts to destabilize feel obvious rather than persuasive. You recognize the tactic and disengage emotionally. Without emotional access, influence fails. The strongest position is not constant certainty, it is self-trust. When you trust your internal compass, external noise fades. Dirty players lose the ability to guide behavior because there is nothing loose to pull. Clarity is not loud, it is steady, and steadiness makes manipulation expensive. Number 8. The most underrated weapon: inconsistency. Machiavelli understood that stability comforts observers, but uncertainty unsettles those seeking control. When behavior becomes too consistent, it turns into a pattern others can anticipate. Anticipation creates planning. Planning creates leverage. Dirty players rely on this sequence. They do not fear strength, they fear unpredictability. Controlled inconsistency is not disorder. It is selective variation. It means choosing when to be available and when to be distant, when to engage and when to withhold. This variation disrupts expectation. Others cannot settle into a reliable rhythm around you. Without rhythm, influence weakens. Dirty players thrive on prediction. They test reactions, map habits, and measure response time. Once they understand your default behavior, they design approaches around it. Inconsistency breaks that design. When reactions shift without explanation, calculation fails. Machiavelli favored irregularity because it creates psychological friction. People become cautious when outcomes vary. They slow down. They question assumptions. They hesitate before acting. This hesitation returns control to you without confrontation. Predictable behavior also invites entitlement. When people know what to expect, they begin assuming access. They expect replies, availability, and accommodation. Inconsistency interrupts entitlement. It reintroduces boundaries without announcement. Dirty players often interpret consistency as obligation. They push against it, knowing you will respond the same way each time. Irregularity removes this advantage. When access is not guaranteed, behavior adjusts. Respect increases quietly. Inconsistency also protects information. When responses are uniform, others infer intent. When variation exists, intent remains unclear. This ambiguity prevents strategic targeting. Dirty players cannot plan effectively without understanding how you will react. Machiavelli understood that control requires familiarity. The less familiar you become, the harder you are to manipulate. This does not mean chaos. It means refusing to offer a fixed version of yourself to everyone. Many people fear that inconsistency appears unstable. Dirty players exploit this fear. They pressure others into maintaining predictability by labeling variation as unreliable. In reality, controlled inconsistency signals autonomy. It communicates choice. The key is intentionality. Randomness without purpose creates confusion. Variation with awareness creates power. Each shift should serve positioning, not impulse. Machiavelli emphasized control over appearance, not abandonment of discipline. When inconsistency is applied correctly, others adapt to you instead of you adapting to them. They wait, they observe, they hesitate. The advantage reverses. You are no longer reacting within their frame, they are adjusting within yours. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I am unpredictable. Number 9. Why walking away creates fear. Machiavelli recognized that disengagement unsettles those who depend on reaction. Dirty players expect involvement. They anticipate argument, defense, or explanation. Participation confirms relevance. When you remove yourself, the structure they rely on collapses. Walking away denies reinforcement. Without response, effort loses purpose. Dirty players measure influence by attention received. When attention disappears, uncertainty replaces confidence. They begin questioning effectiveness, timing, and impact. Absence disrupts narrative control. As long as you remain present, others shape interpretation. They assign motives, frame intentions, and guide perception. When you leave, that control weakens. There is no immediate behavior to reinterpret. Silence creates a vacuum. Machiavelli understood that presence equals access. Access allows pressure, removal blocks leverage. When you disengage, you deny opportunities for provocation, escalation, or extraction. Dirty players lose their stage. Walking away also signals self-sufficiency. It communicates that outcomes do not depend on engagement. This challenges assumptions. Dirty players often believe others need resolution, closure, or validation. When that need is absent, their influence diminishes. Fear arises from uncertainty. When you exit without explanation, others are left guessing. They wonder whether they misjudged, overreached, or lost control. This uncertainty shifts focus inward. Instead of targeting you, they reassess themselves. Machiavelli observed that power is often maintained through dependency. When others rely on response, negotiation, or acknowledgement, influence persists. Walking away breaks dependency. It demonstrates autonomy without confrontation. Many people remain engaged out of habit. They believe participation equals strength. Dirty players encourage this belief because it benefits them. In reality, restraint communicates confidence. Withdrawal communicates choice. Walking away also preserves energy. Engagement drains focus. Disengagement restores clarity. When you step back, perspective returns. You observe from distance rather than reacting from within. This repositioning weakens external influence. There is also a reputational shift. Those who disengage calmly appear unbothered. Those seeking reaction appear invested. Observers notice this contrast. Authority gravitates toward those who do not chase outcome. Machiavelli understood that fear is not always loud. It often appears as confusion, second-guessing, or hesitation. Walking away creates all three. Dirty players are left without confirmation that their tactics worked. That doubt lingers. This does not mean permanent disappearance. It means choosing when presence serves you. Engagement should be strategic, not habitual. When walking away becomes an option, leverage returns. The strongest signal you can send is not resistance, it is indifference. When others realize they cannot provoke, persuade, or pressure you into engagement, they reconsider their approach. Walking away removes their audience, their leverage, and their narrative. What remains is uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds caution. Power does not need to argue. Sometimes it simply exits. Number 10. The final Machiavellian truth. Machiavelli never promised harmony. He understood that peace is temporary, but position endures. Those who seek constant resolution place themselves in vulnerable cycles. Those who focus on placement rise above recurring conflict. The final truth is not about winning exchanges. It is about becoming unreachable. Dirty players operate where access exists. They provoke where reaction is likely. They invest energy where influence is possible. When those channels close, effort stops. Machiavelli recognized that true power is not confrontation. It is cost. When interacting with you becomes expensive, behavior changes. Becoming untouchable does not require dominance. It requires self-command. When reactions are measured, explanations are minimal, and engagement is selective. Others adjust. They test less. They push less. They redirect attention elsewhere. Influence fades naturally. The goal is not control over others. It is control over self. Once that is established, external manipulation loses traction. Dirty players thrive on emotional access. Remove access, and tactics weaken. Without feedback, pressure cannot calibrate. Machiavelli understood that position is maintained through consistency of principle, not predictability of behavior. Values remain stable. Expression varies. This balance confuses those seeking leverage while grounding those observing. Untouchability also alters reputation. People sense when boundaries exist without being announced. They feel when engagement is optional, not reactive. This perception changes treatment. Interactions become cautious. Behavior moderates. Many believe respect is demanded. Machiavelli observed that it is earned indirectly. When you do not chase outcomes, outcomes chase you. When you do not argue narratives, narratives dissolve. When you do not defend identity, identity stabilizes. The final truth is simple but difficult. Power is not loud. It is quiet alignment. It adjusts environments rather than reacting within them. It shapes context instead of debating content. Dirty players cannot operate effectively in environments they do not control. Becoming costly does not mean being distant from everyone. It means reserving access for those who respect boundaries. It means choosing where energy flows. It means understanding that availability is leverage. Machiavelli did not advise isolation. He advised selectivity. Influence remains strongest when engagement is intentional, when presence is earned, not automatic. This selectivity forces others to self-regulate. Once people realize that provoking you produces no return, strategies shift, attention moves, pressure dissipates. You are no longer a useful target, not because you defeated anyone, but because interaction no longer benefits them. This is the final Machiavellian lesson. The objective is not domination, it is elevation beyond reach. When your internal state cannot be manipulated, external behavior loses relevance. Position is freedom, and freedom is the ultimate advantage. If they play dirty, don't mirror their chaos. Mirroring keeps you inside their frame. It keeps you reacting to rules you didn't design. Outsmarting them mentally is not about tricks. It's about clarity. Clarity about who you are, what you allow, and where your energy goes. Everything you've heard in this video points to one truth. Power doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It doesn't explain itself to feel safe. Power adjusts the environment and lets others expose themselves. The moment you stop reacting on command, the moment you stop filling silence, the moment you stop proving your intentions, something shifts. People become careful around you, not because you threatened them, but because they can't read you anymore. And unreadable people are expensive to deal with. You don't need to confront every move. You don't need to win every exchange. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. Your job is not to be liked. Your job is to be positioned. Once people realize you don't chase outcomes, don't beg for clarity, don't panic under pressure, they stop playing dirty with you, not out of morality, out of self-interest, because manipulation only works where access is cheap. Remember this, you don't become powerful by adding noise. You become powerful by removing predictability. If this video helped you see the game more clearly, if it gave you language for things you've felt but couldn't explain, do 3 things right now. Like this video so it reaches people who need awareness, not comfort. Share it with someone who keeps getting played without understanding why. And subscribe to the channel because the next videos will go even deeper into power, psychology, and mental control. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me which principle hit hardest. And remember, you don't win by fighting dirty. You win by becoming untouchable. Stay sharp, stay aware, and never play a game you don't understand. Hey warriors, if they play dirty, outsmart them mentally, because this world doesn't reward the cleanest heart. It rewards the sharpest mind. Machiavelli never taught people how to be evil. That's the excuse weak thinkers use when they feel uncomfortable with truth. What he actually taught was far more dangerous than evil. He taught awareness. He taught survival. He taught how to stand upright in a room where everyone else is already lying. Look around your life for a moment. At work, in social circles,